As I recall, sometime in the winter of 2024, Karen Allen posted information on the bulletin board announcing WhaleCoast, Alaska, a Unitarian Universalist sponsored excursion program that has been going on for 30 years. I've since learned that Jennifer Carter told a group of UUs about the trip, and it went on from there. It gives participants a more authentic Alaska travel experience while raising funds, close to $1 million in total, for the operations of 4 Alaska UU congregations in Fairbanks, the northernmost UU group in the world, Anchorage, Sitka, and Juneau. The congregations provide lodging in members' homes, food, programs, transportation, and fellowship. It's a brilliant arrangement, beneficial for both congregations and travelers, and so much more rewarding, in my opinion, than more typical group tours. The idea caught on, and as 8 UU Blue Ridgers signed up for the trip, making us the largest UU contingent last year, though probably representing the smallest congregation. We converged on Fairbanks around July 1st, where we met 32 other UUs from around the country, as well as our host families. The cost of this tour, by the way, was $5,000 per person. Our tour was called the All Alaska Tour. There had been an earlier tour called Alaska National Parks. Of course, Alaska is huge, twice the size of Texas. So while we did cover a lot of ground, we didn't cover the state. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Show you where we went. We went from Fairbanks south to Denali, sort of in the middle, yeah. And then south by train again to Anchorage. Then we flew southeast to Sitka. And our final leg was northeast to Juneau. So there you have it. The travels in Alaska ended on July 31st. We had more impressive experiences during that almost 2 weeks than we can summarize, but we hope this picture show gives a good sampling of them. We'll talk along the way about community, culture, mountains and glaciers, rivers, wildlife, and people. So come along with us.
The Fairbanks congregation offered a pre-trip extension, which Jay and I went on. And this is Chenna Hot Springs, which is one of the places we went. We also went to see the Alaska oil pipeline. Important stuff.
We're starting with the UU Fairbanks congregation, one of their UU themed signs. That's the building itself. We're getting organized here. We were standing up there being introduced as the Blue Whale Pod. That was the name Sarah christened us with. And that was for sort of organizational and security purposes to separate us into groups. They served us food. We had many meals, courtesy of the congregations. It was great food. And that's our leader at the head there, 𝐼𝐴, giving us orientation.
Our tour hosts took Jay and me to the Malamute Saloon, something we had heard about from John, and he had recommended it, John Larson. It was a real honky-tonk kind of place. And the band performance was very similar to one that we had just this past week at the brewery here in Sperryville. Had the same sort of feel to it. We had our hosts lived right on the river, you can see behind, and they only had a 1-bedroom house. So they stayed in their RV while we got there, got to look out over the beautiful river down below. And this was our hostess, who is an octogenarian who mushes her in her spare time. Doesn't look like she's 80, but so that was a lot of fun, having a chance to meet people who have their own lives in Alaska.
These are the hosts that Sue and I and Catherine and Sarah stayed with, Melanie and Derek Sykes. Stayed there 3 nights, I think. Back at the Fairbanks UU. And they have a tradition of ferrying people to the Sunday service by canoe. And many of us did that.
And survived.
It's on the 𝐂𝐨𝐚𝐬𝐭 River. It goes right pretty much through town.
One of our greatest parts of the whole trip was visiting the Large Animal Research Station. The muskox was my favorite. It turned out to be, it's the oldest living specimen, wildlife specimen in North America, I think. Anyway, muskox get their name from the musky odor that the males use to attract females. It did not attract any of us. We did see some buffalo. I don't know if those are native Alaskans, but they were beautiful. The caribou, which are referred to in Eurasia as reindeer, were interesting to see the velvet stage on their horns, or their antlers, which they grow every year. There are 750,000 of these caribou in Alaska in 32 different herds. One of the things they do is they spend their the winters in the forests, and they come out onto the tundra to give birth. Their migration pattern is 840 miles, and it's the longest migration of any land animal on Earth. About 1/4 of the newborns, this is the muskox baby.
Cute.
No horns on that one, thank God for that.
All right, we're about to go on the Alaska Riverboat Discovery Tour. That's the entire group of 40. There's the ship, boat. Everybody was happy pretty much the whole time, as you can see. And this is the Susan Boettcher Sled Dog Center. Susan Boettcher was a winner of the Iditarod, I think perhaps 9 times. And so the dogs would be pulling this employee who was on a 4-wheeler that did not have an engine in it. Whoops. Oh. Uh-oh. Might have to come up here, Gary. Sorry about that.
We watched the mushing demonstration from the riverboat, looking out over the railing. For all those little houses. Yes. Those are dark houses.
Her t-shirt says Alaska, where men are men and women win the Iditarod 9 times. We stopped at a recreated Athabascan village, and we saw a young woman demonstrating Alaska native ways. That was a fur. Back on the riverboat. And another duplicate there. Okay, well, good to see you twice. Our friend from Florida, her name was Hong, and she was very nice. Karen and I hiked with her on a couple of occasions. This is the Museum of the North in Fairbanks. Wonderful displays, just an absolutely world-class museum. And that is Maya on the left and her sister Sierra on the right. Very competent and patient people. This is a geological feature called the Granite Tors.
As we were on our way to the 𝐂𝐤𝐚𝐬𝐭 hot springs, we passed this formation of a vertical granite. In Alaska, Alaska was formed by 5 continental plates coming together in myriad of lots of different ways. So the geology in that part of the world is very interesting.
We left Fairbanks on the train, the Alaska Railroad. We had a really nice time on the train. It was a slow train, which is just how you would like it. I think that's the Nenana River.
Here's where we arrived at the Denali National Park and began our experiences there. This is just a scene of going up to some of the. This is what we were seeing, whether we're on the bus. We also went whitewater rafting. And it was quite an experience that we were, all of us, there were, I believe, 40 of us. So everybody had, a boat assignment. If you look in the very back, right up in front of the guy steering, are Jay and me. My job was to keep Jay in the boat.
Good job.
Now, when we were on when we were in Denali, you get to go on a bus tour to see the animals. And our assigned bus tour, we had to leave at 4:30 a.m. And we were grumbling about that. But later in the day, we learned that everybody that went on the subsequent buses did not see anything. And we saw these wonderful things. But the way the bus was set up, the driver had a camera. So when he saw something, he could zoom in on it with his camera. And then in the bus, there were little screens about every 3 or 4 rows so that we could see up close the wildlife. So let's go. These were a couple of our traveling companions who had brought their grandchildren's toys along to go on the trip and take them back for their grandchildren's stories. And we just saw wildlife. Here's one that was zoomed up for us to see closer. We saw fox, we saw bears.
These are some scenery pictures, not really in sequence, but they're nice to look at. And back in Denali.
Bears.
Thank you.
Told that was a mama bear and her 2 young bears, and the bears stay with the mother for 2 years before they are sent off to fend for themselves.
And we were warned that you don't want to get within 500 yards of the grizzlies because that's their territory.
This is a mule deer, isn't it?
Mama moose.
Moose. Oh, okay. Mama moose.
And her little, what's a baby moose called? Calf. Okay. I was going to say mooselet, and that's not right.
A bird, but see how close we were able to see it?
Ptarmigan. State bird of Alaska.
What's the name of it?
Ptarmigan.
These are where we stayed in Denali. We each had cabins. Well, we're in the center.
Actually, it was in the town. It was in the, is a town called McKinley Park or something? Okay, yeah, a commercial area.
The park rangers who service Denali throughout the winter get around by dog sled. And in the summertime, they have to keep the dogs fit and ready to roll. So they pull these little wheeled sleds. And show the tourists, us, how they work.
There's Hong and Karen on a hike. And we're assembled to go south to Anchorage. A gallery here. Arriving in Anchorage and Native Heritage Center.
Hi, this is my very favorite place that we visited, and Michael and I brought some of our souvenirs of things that we purchased there. This was a place where we could actually see the great Native Alaskan art that was prepared, and also there was a wonderful coffee shop that we spent time.
Again, the Heritage Center. That's a dwelling. That's inside the Heritage Center, dancing. You think those costumes are made out of seal gut, as I believe, intestine? Oh, these are out of sequence. I'm going to skip those for now. Okay. All right. Now, back in the Heritage Center.
One of the best parts of the trip was seeing these athletes, Native Alaskans, doing these amazing feats that test their strength, endurance, and agility. When people were hunting on the tundra, they sometimes used these leaping activities like this one to signal that they had made a kill or got skunked. He started on the floor and he jumped up and supported himself by one arm and kicked that ball. And the idea is to be the big ball kicker.
Move along. We shall not duplicate that feat here. Okay. We went to the Anchorage Museum, another very wonderful museum with artwork inside, of course. And we were treated to an outdoor dinner by the Anchorage UUs.
We had so many incredible feasts, many of them involving salmon, which was pretty impressive. These people were so friendly. They gave each of us little gifts, which might be gift cards or, anything like that, just small books and things like that they had for everybody. And so we had this wonderful outdoor feast. Our entertainment was the Dolly Partons, who sang Dolly's songs and wore her wigs. And it was really fun. Everybody was so welcoming all the time. It was really great.
Okay, now we go into the air on our way to Sitka. That's the Sitka UU, as you might have guessed.
So in Sitka, if you remember, some of you may remember Jennifer Carter. So Jennifer was here for a couple of years. Her husband was working for the park, and they had lived in Sitka. In fact, I finally figured out while they were there, they had adopted a child, a Native Alaskan. And then because I'm friends with her on Facebook, I learned that her child, who was going to the school in Fredericksburg, was up there for a summer program in an art study. So we connected with her and she connected with us at this gathering. So she kept in touch with us through the several days that we were there and would walk around with us and tell us about things and tell us about her life there. But go back one slide to so this is the congregation's building.
The bottom floor, they own the building. The top floor is an apartment that they rent out. The bottom floor is, go to the forward to the next slide, is the meeting room. They have a kitchen. Help. Just go forward. Yeah, so they have a meeting room and a kitchen and, but so they're sharing their space or using their space in order to produce income for the congregation. And, every congregation that we visited, we learned new dynamics about how they're keeping their congregation together. This is just one example. In Sitka, so Sitka had a lot of Russian influence, and including they also had these totem poles that there was a whole trail, probably half a mile of trail of these original totem poles. There was a fellow who was a member of the congregation who met us and took us on a tour explaining all the totem poles to us. Then also, let me know if it's somebody else's turn, but there was a raptor center in Sitka where they rescued injured bald eagles.
And a golden eagle. Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
Then this is the center about the bishop's house where this is where the Russian exhibit was. It was a museum there. And they talked a lot about when the Russians came and I think they even had some wars with the Russians and the Alaskans won.
The Sheldon Jackson Museum. This was a really unique. We had so many wonderful museums. This one was beautifully curated. You can see the large room there. They have all the boats hung up on the side so you can see them. And you can open each of these drawers has treasures in it. So you could stay there for days. It was really fascinating.
Can't identify the flowers, sorry. They look like lupine, don't they? Okay, we're about to embark on a harbor tour, and we'll be seeing some wildlife.
Humpback whales. I looked up humpback whales after we got home, and they migrate to Hawaii every fall. This takes 6 to 8 weeks, but it's where they breed and have their calves. And then in the winter or in the spring, they head back up to the cold waters of Alaska where the fishing is better, basically. But the babies have to be weaned and able to feed themselves before they do this. So she has her little calf there and she's teaching it. It had already come up as a baby, but it was relying on her to get him there. And now it's got to get back to Hawaii on its own. So they said a lot of this breaching is strengthening the baby's muscles to be able to do this 6 to 8 week trip. It's an incredible migration. And these little guys.
It's actually not in this location. But
yeah.
It's cute.
Are they seals or sea lions? I can't remember.
Mike says seals. I'm going to go with that.
And there's a close up of one of the things they do when they breach, she would leap completely out of the water, flop on her back. And the naturalist said they do that partly to get rid of barnacles. It smashes some of the barnacles off, so they're irritating, the buildup on their skin. They were incredible.
Great.
More,
Sea lions, Mike?
I think so. And there were eagles. These are cormorants. And more
Sea lions.
there were I don't know if is there a slide for orcas? I can't remember now.
Not yet.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're going to leave Sitka, flying to Juneau. Very snowy.
We visited a couple of glaciers, and that was very exciting for me. I loved looking at them. First, you can see the glacier as it's coming down between the stone. That glacier at one point covered a great deal of land between where the photograph was taken and where the glacier is now. So that glacier has been retreating for quite a long time.
Excellent.
Each of the glaciers produces a ton of water as they are melting in the summertime. That's a typical thing that they do. And this wonderful waterfall went all the way from the top of the mountain down into this a very large pond. That's another image of that same Mendenhall Glacier.
We stayed at the Juneau Hotel. They had across the way a nice whale coming out of a fountain. It's not real. We took a boat tour down Tracy Arm. It's a fjord.
Yeah, the orcas actually are, they're not whales, they're in the dolphin family. And a pod of orcas is usually a family, often a female and her offspring, but the males sometimes have harems, all of females. And they basically stay there year round. They like the cold water. They sometimes go to different areas, but they really like the colder water. So they don't do the long migration thing. And the waterfalls were just unbelievable.
That's the proper location of those seals.
The orcas got them.
Yes.
That's the South Sawyer Glacier. And you can get an idea of how huge it is by the size of that fairly large ship right in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
All of that gray stuff that all they sell, or good gray,
That's the color of the ice. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm. All right, we're almost done, and this is the last congregation to host us.
So this is Juneau, and one of the things as we visited all these different places is we learned how the congregations were operating. In Juneau, this is their last year to participate in the tour because they don't have enough people, volunteers, to host all these people. That's why we stayed in the Juneau Hotel, not in people's houses like we did at some congregation visits. But I checked on them to see, because I thought I misunderstood what they were doing. So I looked on their website, and they now have their small congregation, and they meet in the Jewish synagogue. And so they have a minister who, it's almost like she's a consulting minister. She flies in from Portland once a month, and they have a service with her, and then they have other activities on their Sundays. So probably running like we are running, doing a lot of the services themselves. So we saw all sorts of dynamics, but the whole trip we experienced the friendliness and the warmth of Unitarian kindred spirits from the people that we met and traveled with. They were from all over. We could talk to them, figure out that we knew people they knew, and it was really an enriching experience.
Well said. We highly recommend the tour if you didn't get that impression already. All right, thank you very much for coming along with us.